to win the AFC Championship. Whether they do it or not is another thing. But I'll tell you what that path is in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for joining me today on Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, your host of Locked On Jaguars. Well, it's your daily podcast because it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. I'm going to get right to it. I know people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but the Jaguars do actually have a path. That means that there's a reasonable direction where they can go to win the AFC South as a division. It's the first time we've been able to say that in a while, and I'll get to it today and tell you exactly how I'm going to do it. First, I'm going to talk about something that my old high school coach used to talk about. He talked about being lucky. And when you ask him what being lucky was, folks sometimes want to balk at being lucky, saying it's not luck, it's skill. It's skill. It's not luck. What do you mean? We come work hard every day. Yeah. Well, he told us, and you guys have heard it by now, but I heard this back in 1985. Fred Gurgis Sr., rest in peace, said, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. And we tried to understand it, being 15 years old and thinking you know everything, you don't always get it. But I looked at it later on like an intersection where luck and opportunity cross paths. Preparation and opportunity cross paths. And that means you're lucky. When it's your time or when there's a chance for something to happen, who are you? We're going to talk first about the preparation part, and then we're going to talk about the luck part. And then in segment 3, of course, we're going to get to the actual pathway and how this has to happen. First of all, let's get to the preparation part. The preparation part is this. The Jaguars had to get themselves together. And I mean to the core. They had to actually get themselves together. That's front office, which is yet to be determined whether or not they fixed it all. But with a coaching staff, with a plan, with personnel, and then having things match up and having things line up on that side. And what I mean by that is not having a team that's only built to win one year where you have a bunch of older players and then you have some really good young ones and you don't know if you're going to ever get it to mesh up contract-wise. Like by the time your young players get a little bit older and wiser and start leading, then those older players are too old and now you have to replace them with other folks. And you never really get that thing lined up to allow yourself to have multiple seasons of having an open window. And when you look around the league, there are teams that win and there are teams that contend because they have all of this lined up. Like they have a bunch of guys that are within the same framework contract wise, and they have a bunch of guys that are usually in the same age group. And those guys get a chance to grow together and become consistent year by year. Now, I'm not a believer that whatever happened last year carries over to another year. You always have to retool it and you always have to start over. But the point is it's better to start over and retool it with people that are familiar with each other. Not that you're trying to carry over success from year to year, but what you are trying to carry over is the continuity, the trust, and the things, and basically an identity and a program, and you know who you are. So it helps that the Jaguars right now, with the way they're constructed, they don't have a bunch of older players and younger players. They have younger players, and then they have a bunch of 26 and 27-year-olds, right, that are in positions of being the best players and in position to actually lead the team. Now, I know they have some contracts that they signed last year that were 2 or 3 year deals. Some of the 3-year deals are really glorified 2-year deals. But for all intents and purposes, when you really look at the Jaguars and you look at who they are right now on paper, they might not be the most talented team. They might not be great. They might not be a team without holes. But what they are is they're a team where you have a bunch of guys that 2 or 3 years from now, they're going to still be here trying to get better and trying to grow as a team. You start at the quarterback position. Trevor Lawrence, he's their best player, and he's 22, 23 years old. So that's a really, really good start because any of these teams that have won over a long period of time, they had the guy behind center that they knew was going to be there. So I'll give you a team that won one championship, and but they were around and they were relevant for a very, very long time, and they had a great quarterback and a great coach, and that's the New Orleans Saints. The Saints won one title, of course. You guys remember when they beat the Colts in the Super Bowl. Um, they didn't win. They haven't won a title since then, but with the exception of last year, the combination of Drew Brees and Sean Payton, they were always a team that you felt like was right there, and they were on the cusp, and they were close to being able to win it all. And when you have that quarterback position set up like that, you don't have to chase guys in free agency. You don't have to chase guys. You don't have to spend and use up a lot of. There's a certain team in the league right now. Shout out to my man Julian Council for his work up with the Locked On Panthers. The thing about the Carolina Panthers is they keep using up all of their resources on free agent quarterbacks, and you still don't know whether they have the guy who's capable of actually making them be good enough. And then they might end up changing coaches after this year too. So it's that kind of stuff that you kind of want to get away from. And I'm not knocking the Panthers because I think I agree with Dan Orlovsky who said this morning. They have a legitimate shot to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to, but they do have a legitimate shot to make the playoffs if one of those quarterbacks, particularly Baker Mayfield, can play better. But back to the Jaguars is the Jaguars actually have coach and quarterback settled. And we did that on a podcast last week. So when you talk about getting yourself together first, this is what they've done. It's yet to be determined whether or not the front office is as good as it seems like they have been this past off season. But I'll tell you what, from a perception standpoint, Trent Baalke could do no right in January or February. Since then, even the people like me that were very hard on Trent Baalke, you've kind of taken a step back a little bit and go, okay. And so the okay doesn't come from the approval that everything he did was correct. The okay comes from the approval of simply from the point of, okay, whatever he did, they did it together. They're all on the same page and it all matches up. Now, whether it's good enough would be something else, but the Jaguars had to first take care of themselves on and off the field. If we think Urban Meyer was that terrible of a coach, and we do, and whatever you think is probably an understatement, you have to understand that Doug Peterson is more than just an upgrade. He's like a double upgrade, all right? You know, when you don't have a coach, you're at 0. When you get a good coach, say you're at +5. The Jaguars are at -5 because Urban was actually not just a bad coach. He was a bad coach. He was better. You were better off not even having a coach with having him because he created an atmosphere and an environment that wasn't just not conducive to winning. It was actually conducive to losing. And it also created some sort of hysteria, if you will, from the people that worked in the building. Just nasty. And I don't understand. I still don't understand why you take a job to do what Urban did, but I ain't gonna get caught up in that right now. I got to stay focused because the thing is we have to understand if we think Urban was that bad and we actually think Peterson has been that good in the past, then that's almost like a double shot. It was my birthday this weekend, so I'm still thinking about shots, but that's almost give me a double and make it neat because that at the very least, if you win 3 games with them last year, you should win 9 with a better team and a better coach and better preparation. So preparation plus opportunity equals luck. I'm gonna tell you about the opportunity in segment 2, but the preparation I spoke of is getting yourself together and then also being able to be together enough that when it comes to training camp and the games, you are actually getting prepared for the season and for each individual game. They didn't have the right guy last year. Hopefully they have the right guy now. That's the first part. We're going to talk about the luck part of it, where opportunity and preparation turns into luck. We'll get to the luck in segment 3. But segment 2, I'll tell you where the opportunity is. It really has nothing to do with Jacksonville. There's a little bit to do with them, but not as much as it has to do with the rest of the division. I'll tell you about it here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars after I tell you about Built Bar and the coconut brownie chunk puff. You heard what I just said. I said coconut brownie chunk puff. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment. The Puffs is a marshmallow infused with protein, and it is absolutely delicious because it's 100% chocolate all the way around. It covers it all up. That's right. The coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% chocolate, like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. I love the way that sounds. But don't stop drooling and listen. They're good for you. Low carbs, low sugar, high protein, and all of the deliciousness that Built Bar always has to offer. They're only here for a limited time, so go to built.com right now and make sure you don't miss out. They're going fast, but they taste so amazing. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. I'll say it again. It's built.com. Use the promo code of LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Check them out on Twitter too at @bar_built for all the latest news from Built Bar. And we thank you again for joining us here on Locked On Jaguars. I am Tony Wiggins, host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where you can find us free on all platforms and on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube page. And we thank you for making us your first listen again. We're going to be going back to our regular schedule a little bit later on this month, where we'll be having 5 shows per week, 1 per day. It's a little bit of a downtime to give you guys a chance to decompress, give us a chance to decompress and get everything lined up. But we'll be going back to 5 days a week here, coming third week of this great month of July. So I look forward to engaging with you as I always do. Luck is preparation and opportunity. We talked a little bit about preparation, about the Jaguars having to get themselves together, which they did for the most part. There's still some things that we have to see in order to put the stamp of approval on that, but we do think that they've done a good job so far with that. Now, what is the opportunity? The opportunity is the best team in this division has been the Tennessee Titans. I don't necessarily think the Tennessee Titans are going to continue with their momentum because the Tennessee Titans depend on Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback, and I think that provides a chance and an opportunity for the Jaguars to make a difference. I'm not saying that they've drafted terribly, but they've swung on some guys and have missed. They've missed big time. They had 1 first-round pick that really never played for the team a couple of years ago, big offensive lineman out of Georgia. They drafted a guy last year that the police were looking for, and I'm not laughing at his situation. I'm just saying the thought that an NFL team would draft a player that's wanted by the cops is weird in this day and age. And then they just had some guys that they signed in free agency that they have missed. Also, the attrition of A.J. Brown, losing A.J. Brown. I know they added Treylon Burks and they added Robert Woods. But losing A.J. Brown is a pretty big deal when you consider he's one of the most dangerous wide receivers in the league. Derrick Henry is a year older, and Derrick Henry is coming off of a little bit of an injury. I will give them credit. They appeared to not – they didn't fold once Henry went down last year, and he has been the identity of that team so much. They went in with the number 1 seed. People thought, hey, maybe Derrick comes back and he screws up the chemistry a little bit, but I don't necessarily think that happened. But I do believe that over a period of time, they've had that little bit of attrition that happens to teams that are very good. And I think that that's going to provide an opportunity for somebody else to say, hey, we can play with these guys. Let's see what we can do. The Jaguars played them tough a couple of years ago, beat them once. They played them tough in 2 straight games. They didn't necessarily beat them, but the other team, they managed to beat the Colts, who were the second best team in the division. They beat them once out of the past 2 years. In maybe the 2 worst seasons of franchise history, the Jaguars managed to beat the Indianapolis Colts in both of them in each one of those games. And for some reason, they just seem to play them very tough. With the Jaguars' improvement and with their ability to coach, and now with the coach going on a 3rd quarterback, albeit probably a future Hall of Famer, it's still they don't have that continuity that, we continue to talk about. And I know as much as folks love to talk about the Indianapolis offensive line, they actually have some holes on that offensive line. It's like they have a lot of talent in certain spots, but then there are some other spots at the tackle position that leave a lot to be desired. The Colts also have to prove that they have a lot of game playmakers and game changers at wide receiver. They don't necessarily have that. What I'm talking about is this: the two best players on the two best teams are both running backs. And then when you look a little bit beyond that, they're defensive players. It's not wide receivers. It's not quarterbacks. It's not necessarily pass rusher per se. You're talking about Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee, and Brenton Buckner and Darius Leonard in Indianapolis. You can get around guys like that, even though they're great players. Don't get me wrong, but you're not necessarily talking about a superstar edge rusher. Although the Colts did add Yannick Ngakoue, you're not necessarily talking about wide receivers that are proven guys that can hurt you and give you mismatches. Not just having one guy, having two or three of them, like some of the real good teams in the league do. And the quarterback position. And the fact that Houston, believe it or not, who beat the Jaguars twice last year, the fact that Houston is now starting over with Lovie Smith, kind of starting over. He was on the staff last year. And they have a young quarterback who, too, some people believe outplayed Trevor Lawrence last year in Mills, the second-year play out of Stanford. But overall on their roster, they've lost a lot. And they changed their defense last year to a 4-3 from a 3-4. And I'm not sure they've gotten done with continuing to build all the little pieces that they need. There's been a lot, and Nick Casario has done a real good job, but there's just been a lot of turnover. That being said, what's the path for Jacksonville? The path is the unknown. The unknown factor of what this team is really going to look like, because it's not going to be a normal progression. Going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson is going to be a tremendous leap. So right out of the gate, teams that think they know what to expect from Jacksonville, they don't. And they won't know what to expect until they actually see it on the field. And the Jaguars are going to be bigger, stronger, and faster than they have been in the past. They're going to have a little bit more playmaking, and you're actually going to get some play from Trevor Lawrence that matches the enthusiasm of the Jacksonville fan base. I think they have a chance early on to get off to a quick start, win some games. I think they can at the very least go 500 in the division and possibly win 4 or 5 games in the division, depending on the way that it goes. That's the opportunity. The opportunity is these other teams aren't as good as they have been in the past, and they have a lot of questions. But the questions that they have, it's not at a place where Jacksonville has their questions. Quarterback, no question. And I think these other teams have quarterback questions that are definitely legitimate and that have to be answered. And then it's just the overall talent. You're still going to see Houston sort of look like Houston last year because Lovie was on that staff. You're still going to see the Colts be what they were. You're going to see the Titans be what they were. You don't know what the Jaguars are, because they were so bad last year. There wasn't a real good reputation of who they truly were. And they have some new additions, and they have a new coach. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that and the possibility and the probabilities that happens. And we'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars on today's show. I'm going to tell you what day it is. You all know what the day it is. Listen, we thank you for making us your first listen. I want you guys to also check out the Locked On NFL YouTube page. Some tremendous content that's going to be coming next week. It's already good, but next week you're going to get a big surprise. So make sure you like and subscribe to Locked On NFL YouTube page, where you'll see yours truly on there every Wednesday with James Rapine as well. It's free on all platforms. Go to YouTube, like and subscribe, and make that your next listen of the day. So we talked about luck. We talked about the preparation the Jaguars have. And we talked about the opportunity that might present itself. What's the likelihood that all of this stuff goes the way that I've sort of described it? I would put my odds at it at about 75% right now, that the way that I laid it out for you. At some point, if you listen to me, you'll have a point before the first half of the season is over, and you'll go, that's what Wig's talking about. Now, We talked about things that they have to avoid too. If you want to check out all the past podcasts, I talked about things the Jaguars have to avoid in order for these things to have a chance and be able to manifest themselves on the field. There's some things that just cannot happen, but most of those are not exclusive to Jacksonville. When you talk about um, that I word that means people not being healthy, that is universal to everyone and relative to every team in the league, especially when you talk about at certain positions, i.e., quarterback. You have to have your guys. You can't have your guys you can't have multiple guys in one position group. You're going to get guys banged up. You just don't want them banged up in the same position groups, and so it starts really making your depth have to do more than it's supposed to do, because it's not what depth is for. Depth is to be there to fill in, not to be a full-time starter. So the things that they have to avoid could really hinder their opportunity to take advantage of some of the things that I just mentioned. They could actually exceed my expectations and be really good. Get off to a hot start. If the I word affects other teams, and uh, because of people's lack of familiarity with Jacksonville, and then those other teams be subjected to the same things that I hope the Jaguars can avoid, that's where the luck part comes in. It's like when these things start happening to other teams, now are you prepared to take advantage of it? Can you jump in, and are you a good enough team to swoop in? Because the thing about preparation is this: when I say get themselves together and fix themselves first, you absolutely have to be good in order to make it happen. You have to be good in order to make it happen. You can't take advantage of an opportunity if you're not ready, if you're not prepared, and if you don't believe that you're working towards stuff and that something can break for you and something can happen. So all of those things are things that they have to fix in their mind before they ever step on the field. And that's where if you listen to my past podcast, especially when I said things the Jaguars have to avoid, they have to avoid having too vivid of a memory of everything that happened last year and the year before. They have to avoid worrying about the past and the fact that they've only had 3 or 4 winning seasons in the last 2 decades. You have to understand that the work you put in, that there can be a result that comes from that work that's going to be positive. You ain't snake bit. If you're the fans can feel that way, but the players aren't. These guys been winning at something their whole life. They're not snake bit, so they can't act like a snake bit team that's going to be content with baby steps. And we talked about that before. So you have to have mental preparation, just like the physical preparation, before you can actually get to that intersection where the opportunity comes right in front of your face. They're going to have a chance to win some games. They're going to have a chance to win some games. They're going to have a chance to be competitive. They're going to be, I firmly believe you won't see a game where, like in the past, you've seen this. You've seen the Jaguars come out, and by the end of the first quarter, you knew they were absolutely no match for that other team. Regardless of what happened or whether or not they kind of hung around and kind of fell back into the game, you knew last year when they lined up against Arizona, even though they were winning at halftime, all Arizona had to do was take care of their own business. And they came out with Christian Kirk and all of those guys at the beginning of the second half, and they totally took control of the game. You knew when the 49ers got the ball last year and went on a 78 play, 90-something yard drive that took up all damn near the whole first half, and I'm being facetious here. You knew at that point there was nothing they could do because they were just getting pushed around. And what the Jaguars resorted to was personal fouls and trying to fight. Sounds like me. That's why y'all want to know why I love boxing so much. I'll tell you a story. And this is all about preparation. I got my opportunity. This is a true story. I lived in Temple Hills, Maryland. Every day we walked home from school, I had about 2 or 3 hours before my mom got home. I would go by the boxing gym, Hillcrest Heights, on the corner of 23rd Parkway and Iverson Street. We would walk by that boxing gym. It was like a little barn behind a grocery store. And I would see guys working out. And my buddy would go change and he'd put his clothes on, my buddy man, and he would be in there boxing and doing what the guy says. So the guy said, hey, man, y'all just can't come here and stand around. Y'all going to come in. Y'all got to start working out. So I go in. I start doing everything that I see everyone else doing. And this lasted for a couple of months. And I'm over there, and the guy's giving me a little bit of attention, but he can tell I'm just a dude that's in the gym because I'm with his friends. But I start thinking that in my mind, I'm taking it seriously and I'm banging on stuff and doing stuff and emulating and learning how to pivot and asking questions and this, that. And I was pretty good with my hands as a street fighter, right? I had a little reputation of being able to do that. So I said, put me in the ring. He said, no, you're not ready. I said, come on, man, I ain't scared. Put me in. And I wasn't. He says, okay. Told his man to lace me up, gave me some headgear. I get in. Little did I know I was getting in there with a guy who was really, really seasoned. And I think this old dude was trying to teach me a lesson. That dude was whooping my you know what, throwing combinations I had never seen, doing stuff, pivoting, moving, and I'm standing there trying to street fight, and it is not working. Every time I swing, I get hit with three. It ain't nothing like getting hit and punched in your stomach when you don't recognize it's coming. I got so angry, I tried to turn it into a street fight. I got dirty. I kicked the guy. I got kicked out of the gym. My lack of discipline, my lack of preparation, me thinking that all I needed was bravery and bravado was wrong. And that's the same thing with the Jaguars. That guy gave me an opportunity to get in the ring, but because I've been sloughing and not really doing what I was supposed to do for a few months, and then me thinking courage and me thinking that I was way more better than I was, I got in there and I got embarrassed. You can't get to your opportunity without proper preparation and think that you're going to actually get any kind of result. There. Humility lesson number one. That's why I love and respect boxing so much, because I know how hard it is. Because I quit. I ain't gonna quit you guys here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. I'll be here every single time you click on, like, and subscribe, because it's your team every day. I'm a Duval native, man, and I love this city. And I can't wait till training camp starts so we can give you guys some good news. So today, hopefully, I gave you a little bit of news about the path that the Jaguars can have in order to win a championship. But first, it starts with their own preparation and getting themselves together. Then it has a little bit to do with the fact that they don't play in the NFC or the AFC West. They play in the division, but these teams got some scars on them and a few warts and some things that they have to prove. And then the Jaguars also have, I believe, an advantage at the quarterback position. And outside of Mike Vrabel, they definitely have, and it's arguable that they have an advantage over him, but they definitely have an advantage in the coaching department with Doug Peterson. You guys take care of each other, man, and we'll see you the next time as we head towards training camp here on Locked On Jaguars. Thanks for joining me.